Am I the a-hole for only taking my younger brother out instead of our other half-siblings? My brother 16 male and I 24 male are pretty close. When we were young, my dad left us and our mom. Turns out, for years he had a secret family with another woman that he decided he wanted to be with. For years, we stopped having contact, and I hated my dad for how he broke our mom. When I was 20, my mom passed away, and my dad came back to our lives. My brother was 12, and he was to go with my mom's sister, but Dad stopped that because he wanted him with them. I wished he could come with me then, but didn't have money to take care of him since I was still in school. They got 4 other kids, and my brother hates it there. One half-brother who's a year older, then one same age as my brother, 2 who are 14 twins, and the youngest I think is like 12. They all give him crap and I've seen it too. Make jokes about how our dad chose them over us. Say crap about our mom. His wife doesn't like my brother, so she doesn't do anything but encourage it. My dad's a freaking coward, so he doesn't do anything either. I try to spend every weekend or free time I got with my brother, and we always go out to fun places. I'm out of school and working, so it's easier to see him every day or have him sleep over. My dad lets me see him whenever I want, and knows he can't say no to me because we have a deal. The thing is, his wife and my half-siblings get mad now that I take him to all these cool places, like Six Flags, Universal Studios, the Grand Canyon, skiing, football games, snorkeling, camping, horse riding, etc. But they're always stuck at home. My dad keeps asking me if I could start including them in our outings, and I told him no. Not with how he lets them treat him, and my brother can't stand them. Him and his wife keep saying I'm alienating my other family, and maybe if I started including them, we'd learn to get along. Still, I've said no, and told my dad to drop it or I'll go back on our deal. He stopped pushing it, but his wife still keeps saying stuff whenever I come to pick up my brother. They're mostly mad now because in a few weeks, I'm flying my brother to Florida for his birthday, so I can check out the amusement parks. Some of my friends do think I'm being the a-hole because they're my siblings and I'm the oldest, so should be trying to get along. Just don't want to do anything to them for always being horrible to my brother. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Okay, you all gave some really good information and tried to get custody now in comments, so thank you so much. I'm gonna look into it and see what options we might have. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole, but info. What's this deal you have with your father? Also, if you went for custody for your brother, the courts would probably grant it, especially if the judge asks your brother where he wants to live. I don't tell his wife about him, that will mess up their marriage. It's the only leverage I have, or he wouldn't let me see my brother. I don't know if the court would allow that even if my brother said he wants to live with me since it's my dad. As soon as your brother is out of that house and away from those awful people, tell your dad's wife all about your dad. Make sure his other children are in the room too. Then when you're done, just look at your dad and say, "Oops," and walk out. But I'm petty like that. Definitely not the a-hole. If your dad and stepmom are so concerned about the rest of the children not having fun, they can take them on their own. I mean, it's not like they were concerned about you and your brother having fun when they broke up your family and you both ended up struggling for years. If the half-siblings want to complain, tell them to ask your dad to take them places since he picked them over you. I mean, if he loved them so much, he'd obviously get a second job to take them on vacations. If your stepmom complains about them needing to strengthen family bonds, explain that you and your brother are a family, and your bonds are extremely tight. If she wants to strengthen her own bonds, you can give her some recommendations on places to take her kids. I'd even show her some amazing pictures of you and your brothers on some amazing vacations, and tell her how much fun you had at those places. Bonus points if your half-siblings are in the room while you tell them about all the great times you had with your family, and how close it has made you and your brother. Tell your dad to grow the hell up. They're not siblings. They refused to acknowledge that and treated your brother like garbage. Your stepmom encouraged that behavior and they deserve everything that's coming. That's your dad's fault for cheating on your mother and creating a secret life, and now karma will slowly creep in. You can get along by talking to them and going over, but you don't have to take them out to trips at amusement parks. They've burnt that bridge, and it's up to them to rebuild it if they want you on their side. It's awesome to see that you're taking care of your brother. Just a question, do you plan to take him in when you're able to? Seems like he'd be way better off with you than with your dad. Your dad took him in but doesn't treat him like a son. I don't talk to them at all when I go there. My brother comes out the house and will leave. Just started working a better job over a year ago and making more, so that's why it's easier now to do more stuff with him. He wants to leave and plan is he'll come with me when it's possible. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my father-in-law what his wife has been saying about him on the internet? My wife's mom and stepdad separated about 18 months ago. From my understanding, the cause was that stepdad wanted to let his 2 adult children move into their home after both of his kids lost their jobs due to COVID and needed a place to stay. But mother-in-law was totally against it. At first, stepdad obeyed his wife's wishes, but he eventually heard his son was sleeping in his car after losing his apartment and told both his kids they could come. Mother-in-law was furious and would call my wife almost daily to complain about it. Mother-in-law and stepdad got into a big fight about it, and when stepdad told her that he wasn't going to kick his kids out and have them be homeless, mother-in-law left. Mother-in-law has been basically couch surfing ever since. She stayed with us for a few 2 to 3 week stints. It has bounced around her other siblings the rest of the time. Stepdad's daughter moved out last year, but his son still stays with him and trying to save money to move out. Mother-in-law refuses to go back until stepdad's son is gone. At this point, stepdad and mother-in-law are no longer talking. I'm actually pretty close with stepdad, as he helped me with numerous home projects after my wife and I bought our first home. He feels like he's stuck between a rock and a hard place because he loves mother-in-law and wants her to come back, but he also doesn't want his son sleeping in his car again. Mother-in-law has told my wife and I that she refuses counseling because she doesn't think she's done anything wrong, and she won't file for divorce because she doesn't have a job and needs stepdad's income and health insurance. She also feels that stepdad won't file for divorce either because she knows he would feel guilty about cutting her off from insurance. Over the last year, mother-in-law has been posting a lot of stuff on Facebook about stepdad. A lot of bad-mouthing him, calling him names, saying mean things about his kids, and that the only thing stepdad is good for is money and health insurance. Stepdad doesn't have Facebook, so he doesn't know what mother-in-law has been saying about him. A few months ago, I was helping stepdad move an appliance, and he told me how much he missed mother-in-law and wanted her to come back. I felt bad hearing how much she was hurting, and told him I needed to see something. I showed him mother-in-law's Facebook feed and all the bad things she's been saying. He broke down crying, but eventually pulled himself together enough to let me help him screenshot posts and save them. A couple of weeks ago, mother-in-law called my wife in hysterics because stepdad had actually filed for divorce. After they got done talking, my wife talked to me about it, and I came clean that I showed stepdad what mother-in-law has been saying about him online. My wife was irate about it and told me that it was none of my business to do that, and that I shouldn't have meddled in their relationship. I told her stepdad deserved to know what mother-in-law was saying about him, but my wife told me I'm a huge a-hole because if her mom finds out it was me who told stepdad, then mother-in-law will never forgive me and it will cause a huge rift in her relationship with her mom. Wow, not an a-hole. You did the right thing. I would be worried that your wife might take after her mother a bit, though. Yeesh. Why does your mother-in-law hate his kids so much? My wife's relationship with her mother is complicated. My wife moved out when she was 17. I didn't talk much her entire time in college. It wasn't until she finished college, became a young adult, that she tried to rekindle the relationship with her mother. They still aren't incredibly close. Mother-in-law thinks her stepkids are losers and leeches. She repeatedly calls them middle-aged toddlers in her posts. But she also doesn't work. So does that make her an elderly baby? I know, right? It's okay for her to need stepdad for money and insurance, but not his kids? What? Wait, so this woman moves out of her own home and couch surfs because her stepchildren live there temporarily due to a situation outside of their control. She made herself homeless? Wow, what a hypocrite. Also, ma'am, you put your thoughts on an online platform for people to see and comment. You didn't tell her husband about a personal conversation. You pointed him to what she's telling the world. Not a hole. Not a hole. Mother-in-law sounds like an absolute pill. Poor stepdad was just trying to be a good father. I agree with you. Stepdad deserves to know what's being said behind his back, especially by someone he thought cared about him. Can't imagine being in a relationship where my partner would do that to me. Your wife needs to learn to understand that mother-in-law's actions and words have consequences. You are simply a messenger, and she's trying to shoot you for things mother-in-law said. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after my sister-in-law left my 2-month-old on a park bench? Me and my sister-in-law have always been close. Her and my brother met when they were 15, I was 12, and now I'm 21. She was always really nice to me, and we bonded over the fact that my parents don't like either of us. A few weeks ago, I got called into work and my sister-in-law said that I shouldn't waste money on a babysitter when I could just let them take her for a bit. My husband was also at work. I guess at some point she decided to take her and her dog for a walk. She says they were walking through the park and the leash slipped out of her hand. Without thinking, she put my daughter on a nearby bench. She was in a little carrier, and she ran after the dog. She didn't even catch the dog, and it wasn't until 2 hours later that she even realized that daughter was missing. When I came to pick up my daughter, she broke down and told me everything. I was livid, but I was so thankful no one kidnapped her. My husband was so mad he stormed down to their house just to yell at her. She recently messaged me details about her wedding. I told her I would not be attending. She called me sobbing, saying that I'm a petty witch, and she wishes someone had kidnapped my daughter. I hung up on her and she apologized and said she needs me there. My friends and family have called me saying I'm petty, and that she was stressed, and it was an accident. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. This is nuts. She wishes someone had kidnapped your daughter? Never talk to this woman again. This. What she did was bad enough, but to follow up with this is crazy. OP, you are not the a-hole. You are not being petty. What you are doing is being a mother and ensuring the safety and well-being of your child. This woman is clearly not in her right mind if she forgot about your child for 2 hours, let alone her disgusting comment. 1. Left daughter on park bench. 2. Forgot daughter on park bench. 3. Says she wishes someone had kidnapped your daughter. Not only are you not the a-hole, but she's such a flaming psychotic a-hole that if I were you, I wouldn't just skip the wedding. I would actively try to stop my brother from marrying her. Info. She left her 2-month-old baby on a public park bench for 2 hours because she forgot her? Yes, I need you to clarify this. 2 hours? Yes, you read it correctly. 2 hours. I'm so livid. Like, how do you forget an entire infant? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy my kids cheaper clothes because my sister-in-law asked me to? With a little update. My husband and I have 2 daughters, 14 and 16. We both have high-paying jobs. I am a plastic surgeon and he is a neurosurgeon, and we met in med school. So we are very stable financially and are able to have some vacations and buy stuff we like. My husband's brother and his wife, on the other hand, are not very well financially. They don't have debts, and they have a nice home though. Sister-in-law and I don't have a very good relationship, but we are cordial enough with each other. My daughters are very into fashion, and I think they're very good at dressing up and making outfits. Since they both have very good grades and are well-behaved, dear husband and I like to take them shopping when we have the chance. Yesterday, we hosted dinner in our house to celebrate father-in-law's birthday, and many family members came, including sister-in-law. My daughters were dressed formally since that's what everyone agreed to. When sister-in-law and her kids arrived, she stared at my daughters with a frown. Later in the evening, before dinner was served, she pulled me aside and asked me why did I allow my girls to wear those clothes. I asked her what she meant, and she said that teenagers shouldn't wear expensive clothing if they didn't buy them with their own money. I told her that it was okay, since although they don't have jobs, they work for it by getting good grades. She told me that it was not fair, and that her kids always ask her to buy them stuff from the same brands. I asked her what I could do then, since honestly I don't think it's my problem. And she said that I needed to stop buying them those clothes and everything would be fine. I tried to politely tell her that I wouldn't, but she called my mother-in-law and asked her for her opinion. Mother-in-law said that they had no business deciding what my daughters can wear, and offered to buy some clothes from that brand for her kids. She started calling me a selfish brat, and that I didn't know what hard work is. So I told her that my husband and I work our butts off every day to be able to afford this stuff, and that she was being entitled. She just cussed me out and went to the table to continue eating. This morning, I received a message from her husband saying that I behaved like a witch and demanded me to apologize to his wife as well as complying with her wishes. I just said no and hung up. Now, they are threatening to go no contact with us unless I apologize, but my ego's too big to do so. So I decided to get an opinion from unbiased sources. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Like you said, you work hard for your money and you can spend it like you wish. She can't honestly expect everyone in life to act like they're at her income level because she's insecure about it. Her kids will inevitably see kids with nicer things at school. That's just part of life. Her reaction was totally uncalled for. Do not apologize to her. Honestly, going no contact sounds like a good idea. Thanks for your opinion. We haven't decided what we will do, but for now, we will wait to see if they calm down. The only way you could possibly be the a-hole is if your girls are bragging about what they have, or being judgmental towards their cousins for having less than them. As long as this isn't the case, which it doesn't seem to be, you're in the clear and it isn't your job to manage your sister-in-law's feelings. Not an a-hole. Like your mother-in-law said, they have zero business deciding what your teenage daughters can and can't wear. Going no contact with them might be better since they sound a bit deranged. Out of curiosity, what did your husband say about their behavior? Thank you. I did tell him about the situation after everyone left, and he just told me to ignore her. But after I received the messages, he got mad at her because he also likes to buy this kind of gifts for our daughters, and he thinks his brother is being entitled. Wait, you don't know hard work? Med school, residency, fellowship, to practicing MD. That is the definition of hard work. And now you are and your family are enjoying the fruits of your and your husband's hard work. Not an a-hole. She is jealous. She can go sit and spin with that crap. I'm a prick, so I would do a photo shoot and put it all over social media with my kids in the forbidden clothes. Update. My husband and I talked with the girls, and they both said they didn't know how their cousins felt, and they offered to wear non-brand clothes in family gatherings so their cousins didn't feel uncomfortable. Dear husband and I thanked them, and told them that it wasn't their fault. Dear husband then contacted his brother, and apparently sister-in-law told him that our girls bullied her children, but we compared versions and realized it was a lie. Brother-in-law apologized twice and made sister-in-law apologize. She was hesitant at first, but did. I told her what my girls were going to do and she said that it was good, but she was hoping for more. To be honest, I feel like the problem is solved for now. Thanks for everyone's advice in the comments. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not taking my wife to the hospital? My wife has a playful personality. She tease/mock/laughs at me all the time. Everywhere. During dinner, in the bathroom, at work, when we're intimate, and in public too. No matter how serious the situation is, she'd always crack a joke to lighten up the mood. I found this both great and annoying, as certain situations require us to be serious. I quite frankly don't know the reason behind her behavior. My sister suggested that it might be a way for her to cope with past traumatic events like her brother's death. He passed away before we met, and understand how hard this is. We have a 5-year-old who's pretty much like his mother. We gave him the nickname Clown because of how he's always laughing and telling jokes and dressing funny. We don't call him that in public though. She just gave birth to our second baby, and ever since she got pregnant, it got worse. Even worse in the past month. She's at home while I work long hours. Every other day, she'd call me during work to ask me something, then suddenly started freaking out telling me the water broke and I needed to get home fast. She's done it twice and recorded our call to listen to it with her sisters and laugh at my reaction. It made me look bad for lying to my employer and telling him my wife went into labor twice. I'd come up with excuses telling him that there was a mistake or something but never tell him my wife lied for the lols. Saturday, I was out working and meeting up with some clients in an area 2 hours away from home. It's a project we've been working on and the 2 clients wanted to see it. Suddenly, my phone started ringing. It was my wife. I looked at it and thought that she was at it again and tried to be funny telling me she went into labor. I put my phone on silent. Then I got a text from her telling me that I needed to get home to take her to the hospital, but I just quickly replied telling her to stop. This wasn't a time for messing around, I had a lot of work, and driving 2 hours just to find she was just kidding was not okay. But in about 30 minutes, I got a call from her sister calling me names for ignoring my wife's calls, and that she ended up driving her to the hospital herself. I was shocked. I left work and drove more than 2 hours to get to the hospital. My wife saw me and cussing me out and telling me to get out. I wasn't allowed in the delivery room. And her mother insulted me, asking me how I could leave my wife home alone and not answer her calls. I felt awful already. I wasn't allowed to see our baby until 10. The entire family called me neglectful a-hole and said I deserved what I got. My parents said I was in the wrong, although I explained that I didn't know. My wife keeps saying I had no right to complain about not being in the delivery room after I ignored her like that and made her feel helpless. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Buy her the story The Boy Who Cried Wolf for her to read to the new baby. Maybe the baby can read to her instead. Given how childish Opie's wife is being, are we sure she's past first grade? Not at a-hole. Your wife doesn't have a playful personality. She's a bully, and an a-hole uses your emotional state and lies to you for her own amusement. I like this, yes, not at a-hole, and you nailed this person correctly. Hard not at a-hole. Jesus Christ, this is the story of the boy who cried wolf. Or the woman who cried baby, I guess? This was entirely an incident of her own making. It is her fault. Yet, Opie is the one dealing with all the consequences once again. Opie just missed the birth of his child because of her actions. I'd be freaking livid with her. Opie's income, I imagine their joint income as she's just had a baby, was threatened repeatedly by her lies. All to humiliate her husband for her own amusement as a bully. Honestly, at this point I want to fight fire with fire and have Opie tell his wife that he lost his job because of his wife's BS pranks. Tell wife that his boss told him that if it was another false alarm, he was losing his job, and when he left to go to the hospital to see her, he did lose his job. See how funny she finds it losing her income when she has a newborn because of her actions. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole if I don't allow my son in family photos? I, 30 female, have been together with my husband, 30 male, for 15 years and have been married for 7 years. We have had 2 instances where I have been excluded from family photos. The first time was when we were engaged and my husband's grandmother, 73 female, wanted to take photos of everyone for the holidays. When I situated myself next to my then fiancé, she said, "Let's take some photos of the biological family first." What followed was 30 minutes of different arrangements of family members while I sat off to the side because I was the only non-biological grandchild there. They took iterations that included spouses of aunts and uncles. They took a few photos with me at the end, but everyone was exhausted, so they didn't come out good. The photos that are on display at the grandmother's house are the photos without me in them. When I expressed my frustration to my husband, he explained that his family wanted to ensure they got some sets of the real family first. His words. I explained how hurt I was to be excluded, and he said that it would not be an issue again because we were going to be married. I took this as a sufficient answer and dropped it. Flash forward to summer of 2019. My husband and I had been married for 5 years and were trying to conceive. We went on a trip with the whole family. They set up a legacy photo shoot. I brought up my fears of a repeat of last time to my husband, but he assured me that things were different now. We were married, we were trying to start a family. I was a member of the family. We took a bunch of photos and I was included in the applicable groups. They took the classic arrangements. Grandparents with grandkids, grandparents with aunts/uncles and grandkids, grandparents with only their birthed children, aunts/uncle generation, but no iterations where the spouses were left out if their kids were involved. When Grandma checked the photos, she said, "Let's try a few with just the biological grandkids." I began tearing up and said, "You mean without me?" My husband pulled me aside and explained that it was only going to be for a few pictures, and asked me why I was ruining the photo shoot that was going so well. After arguing for a few minutes, I conceded and walked away. Since then, his grandmother has displayed photos from that trip and I am in none of them. Also, since then, my husband and I have had a son, 1 male. I have told my husband that in the future we will have 2 choices. Either he tells his family that I am staying in all of the pictures, or I leave and my son is also not in them either. My husband says that this isn't fair and causes him to have an uncomfortable conversation with his grandmother. Am I the a-hole here for not allowing my son to be in a family photo that I am obviously not welcome in? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. We took a bunch of photos and I was included in the applicable groups. The other spouses included were the aunts/uncle generation. I am the first spouse in the grandkids generation. Paraphrased from a reply from Opie. They were taking photos of the biological grandkids. You were not a biological grandkid. I'm sure that when they take pictures of the first great-grandkids, you will be in the applicable pictures as you already have been. You are attempting to assert yourself into a position you don't hold. Maybe grandma doesn't like you, maybe not. Maybe if you took a step back and examined your behavior to see if making things about you, when they aren't, is a pattern that may push her away, or maybe she is in fact the a-hole, but from what I'm reading here, I gotta read it as you're the a-hole. This is an excellent reply. I agree, you're the a-hole. The people who are voting not the a-hole are not realizing that OP wants to be included in photos because of their age, and not because of their position in the family, which is what the grandmother seems to be doing. You're the a-hole. You are literally throwing a temper tantrum that an old lady wants photos of her grandkids, but not you because you aren't her grandkid. So freaking what? Why OP would want to be in the picture of the biological grandkids is beyond me. You're not a grandkid. None of the grandkids' parents were in the pictures. And who obsesses about the pictures displayed in other people's houses? Who cares that much? Some old bat didn't include you in the pictures, and what? The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my in-laws into our home because that's what brother-in-law wanted? My brother-in-law, Jason, is 20, and 2 years ago he was in an accident that left him paralyzed. He's bound to a wheelchair and barely has any hand mobility, so he needs help with pretty much everything. My wife's parents were hit hard by this and struggled with the pressure of taking care of him. Even though he receives benefits and compensation, in-laws couldn't handle all the doctor's appointments, physical therapy sessions, and constantly caring for him. In the end, Jason came to live with us. Her parents claimed they just needed a few weeks to take a break from caring for him. A few weeks turned into months until he stayed with us permanently. There was a lot of conflict over this. We couldn't believe they just stopped coming to see him altogether, when he was already in a dark place and adjusting to these permanent life changes. We didn't speak with them for a long time. It was difficult to adjust at first, but we're glad he's here with us. Before COVID, we had a care provider stay with him while we were at work, but now that we're home majority of the time, we just take turns. He and I have gotten very close, so we've had many talks about his feelings. I know how hard this is for him and how much it hurt when my in-laws pulled out of his life. We haven't had any contact with them at all in over a year. Well, as it turns out, they want to see him again. My wife told me this could be the chance to finally get the family back together and to make amends. She's talked this over with Jason, but he wants nothing to do with them. He's made it clear he doesn't want to see them, but she insists it's important they all talk. Today, they showed up unexpectedly when my wife was out. Jason was in the other room, and apparently they arranged this meeting today with my wife, but got there earlier than the agreed time. They just wanted to have a sit-down with Jason, but I didn't let them set foot in the house. Honestly, my anger got the best of me, and I shut the door on them when they wouldn't leave. I told Jason they were here. He didn't want to speak with them. They left after 10 minutes. When my wife got home, she was furious. She knows what they did was bad, but this was the chance to make it better, and Jason doesn't know what's best for himself because he's still upset about what they did. We went back and forth on this. She said closing the door on them and refusing to let them see Jason was an a-hole move, but I feel his wishes should be respected. However, she says his feelings on this are obviously clouded because of what happened, and I prevented him from reconnecting with them in order to move on from the pain. So, I'm not sure, was I an a-hole here? Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law absolutely does know what's best for his own emotional well-being. He shouldn't be forced to clear the air until he wants to do so. I completely agree, and Opie needs to have a serious conversation with his wife about her priorities. This was a planned ambush on her brother, and she was in on it. Not the a-hole. As someone with mobility issues from a spinal injury and headed for a wheelchair, I would be horrified by being trapped in that situation if no one listened to me. You did Jason a solid here by respecting his wishes. It's not like he could just leave. They wanted a captive audience regardless of him and his feelings. It's completely disrespectful. Not the a-hole. It seems like out of everyone, you are the only one who actually cares about Jason and his feelings. Everyone else just wants what's best for themselves, including your wife. I understand she wants her family back together, but this is not the way to do that. Her parents made their choice, and now they must live with the consequences. It's understandable that they couldn't take care of him, obviously being elderly. But to completely stop seeing him after a life-altering accident, they are a-holes for that. If Jason chooses to never see them, that is his choice, not theirs, and certainly not your wife. She's being completely selfish. Jason is lucky to have you in his corner. I think you made a right choice to slam the door on them. Now they know how it feels to shut someone off. They had a nurse helping them with all the heavy stuff. It was just that they were having a hard time adjusting to all the new changes. And yes, I get it takes time for something like this to become your new normal, but certainly not impossible. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole / are we the a-hole for not letting my boyfriend's mom put animals in our farm? I'm 20 female and my boyfriend is 21 male. We have been dating for over 2 years. Back in late 2019, we started renting a house together and the house happened to have a small farm. We didn't use the farm at first, but eventually we cleaned it up and put some sheep on there, and we have a sheepdog as well. My boyfriend's mom is in love with the idea of farming. However, their house doesn't have the capabilities to do that, but she often comes and visits our farm. When we got our sheep, she was going to buy a couple herself and keep up there, which we didn't really want to happen, but it never came to an actual idea, so it wasn't an issue. We got a calf a couple months ago and I fell in love with it. We bottle-fed it and raised it. However, it unfortunately passed away a few weeks ago from unknown causes. My boyfriend's mom bottle-fed it a few times as well. The other day, my boyfriend's mom was over here and asked if we would ever get another one. We told her possibly when it's a bit warmer, and one that was already off the bottle. She said, "Well, how about you all get one and I get one?" We told her we didn't really want to do that because a calf can be a lot of work and expensive, so we just wanted one. She got upset and said, "I will take care of it." And we said, "You're going to come up here every day and feed it and come in the middle of the night if it gets sick, etc." She got really quiet, and that was the end of it. My boyfriend's dad messaged us a couple days later and said his mom was really upset about it because she wanted a farm. He also said, "You were willing to let her get a sheep, why not a calf?" Sheep are not as much work as cows, and we never really let her get a sheep. That's fine, but this is our farm that we take care of. She wouldn't be the one taking care of her calf. It would more often be us unless she was up here, and we really don't want her up here every day even if she was willing to do that. Which she's not. My boyfriend is with me on this completely as he knows he would be taking care of whatever his mom gets. Are we the a-holes here? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Seriously? She should be on her husband's butt about moving and getting a farm so much. Or be content with admiring your farm animals, for which I'm sure she can always visit on a sensible manner. Yeah, she clearly doesn't understand the pain of caring for these animals. Best if she buys her own farm and leave Vopi the hell alone. Not the a-hole. Livestock require care. Fencing, hay production or purchase, dewormer, counted every day so you can't find one if it's missing, grain purchases, salt and mineral blocks and so much more. You don't just go, "I want a fluffy that someone else takes care of," unless you are paying board at the boarding facility, and that is usually pretty exclusive to horses and also usually $300 plus a month. She wants a farm. Her and her husband needs to figure out the move necessary, as in move to a farm, and do the work themselves. Not the a-hole in the context that she's being entitled and has no right to demand anything from you guys. But you can't just get a calf. It will be so lonely. Cattle are really social creatures, and no amount of human interaction will replace another bovine for company. Getting two would be much kinder to them. And if your boyfriend's mother is willing to pay for one and split costs with you, it might not be a terrible idea. Plus, it's a backup if you guys are out of town for whatever reason. The only reason we had our last calf is because it fell into our laps because it was a neighbor's and its mother rejected it. We have thought about getting two for ourselves, just not her having one. It would essentially be taking our resources, and if she were to sell it, then she would keep the profit when it has been our money keeping it going. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe. Update. My wife's 30 female family still don't believe my assault after all these years, and still think I, 30 male, cheated on her. Original story. This happened almost 4 years ago, and it still seems to be an issue for them, even though the people who were responsible for what happened are behind bars. My ordeal resulted in a pregnancy. I got sole custody of my son after he was born, and my wife and I raised him together. He is so precious. My wife absolutely loves him to pieces. It is my whole world. Honestly, he was the best thing to come out of what happened. Her family gave me a lot of crap during this time. They were so sure I made it all up, and this was just to cover that the woman who did that to me was the mistress. Makes me sick thinking about it. My wife cut them out since they wouldn't listen. They only judged me for something I had no control over, making me feel like crap for ruining their daughter's life having her raise my affair child. Then my wife's father died from COVID last year. After that, her family wanted contact again because they realized how short life is. They apologized to both of us and expressed interest in meeting our son. After all this time, I was grateful they came around. I know she didn't like to admit it, but my wife missed her family, and they were great to us before this. I only am finding out now they don't actually accept me. Her sister approached me recently and said they were only making amends because they don't want to miss out on more of my wife's life, even if it means having to tolerate a freaking a-hole like me. Her exact words. So I shouldn't think this means they are okay with me now. Her sister said they will always hate me for what I did to my wife, and don't expect anything from them. That made me hit an all-time low, and I was depressed the rest of the day. They still think I'm a cheater, and will only tolerate me and my son for my wife's sake. My wife doesn't know about any of this. I'm not sure if I should tell her. We've spent so many years no contact with them because they didn't believe what happened to me. But now she has her family back after losing her dad, and I don't know if it would be right to take that away. What should I do? Now for the top advice before reading the update. You have to tell your wife. She deserves to know the whole truth. And whether she decides to keep them in her life or not, you and your son should never have any relationship with them again. Don't do that to yourself. And for sure, don't do that to an innocent child. Especially since they may try to plant seeds of doubt or something to make her eventually leave you. Most people wouldn't believe you, sadly. She's seen the physical proof of. Doubt is something I've never worried about, and it was never an issue of her believing me or not. She saw what happened. You tell your wife. She loves you and she loves her family, but she has already made it clear she can and will choose you and your son. My guess is she won't be happy at all that they're treating you like this, and hold both you and the kiddo in pure contempt and hate. You need to trust your wife just like she trusted you when you told her of you being violated. Now's your time to show her you trust her to process the information and make her own choice. Her family's disgusting and horrid. I can see why they wouldn't believe you, as not a lot of men are the victims of this by women. But it can and does happen. Tell your wife. Trust her. I trust her completely. What makes me really hesitant to tell her is because I know she wouldn't think twice cutting them out again. And I feel awful that after everything that happened, she'd go through the heartbreak of cutting off her family again. Her dad died with them still not speaking to each other. It's hard not to feel like it'll be my fault if this happens, but with the rest of her family. If you don't want her to cut them out of your life again, you can make that judgment call by telling her that. You can tell her you want her to keep some level of contact, but zero contact with both you and your son. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you are open to a compromise, then take it. But you shouldn't be suffering silently. Actually, didn't think about this. Really love that idea. Thank you for mentioning it. Not sure she will take it, but I would like her to have that option of having some level of contact with them. It was her choice, and more importantly their behavior that caused this, I know. But it was still very hard not to feel responsible for going no contact. They were always very close before this happened. She cut them out of your life because they didn't believe you. So she's already established she's willing to make it enforce boundaries. Now they're back, but they still don't believe you. The difference this time is that she believes they believe you. By not telling her, you're lying to her by omission. The truth here is going to come out. Either the sister loops your wife in, or her parents let it slip. That day is coming, and when it occurs, your wife is going to be livid with you for withholding her right to enforce a set boundary she decided to implement. You have to tell her. And now for the update. In the end, I told my wife the truth about what her sister told me the night I made this post. Many of you had a point, and I couldn't keep something important like this from her. She's my rock. I love her with all my heart, and I will always be beyond grateful for all the support she's given me. I just wished I could give her this, having her family in her life, after everything she's done and sacrificed for me. It's sad that that couldn't be the case. My wife was extremely pissed, of course. She was ready to take names, but I asked her to please give it some time. Cool off before she talks to any of them. Some of you pointed this out and I told her the same thing, that we don't know if it's just her sister who feels this way or the whole family. So last Friday she talked to them. Got confirmation that unfortunately it wasn't just her sister. The entire family still doesn't believe that I was violated and that my son was a result from that. All the talk her sister made about tolerating me and my son for the sake of being in my wife's life again. My wife was so angry when she got home. They told her to accept they're always going to hold my infidelity against me and will never understand why she believes this narrative, but they're willing to set those feelings aside to have a relationship with her again. My wife told me she decided she's not going to see them again. Even with the compromise I mentioned, it was said in previous comments, about her still having some form of contact with them, just not me and my son. She doesn't want that and says she's done trying with them. We spent the night hugging and crying. Just because she was angry doesn't mean she also wasn't hurt about making this decision. We were down for days and then decided to take some days off from work. It was a spontaneous trip idea. We rented a hotel room a couple hours away and stayed there about 3 days with my son. We just hit the beach most days, went out to eat and stuff. Our son had a time of his life, and you know what? It was worth it. We definitely needed that time. Just got back last night, and I'll be honest, we both feel very recharged. It was a wonderful time that came from a horrible situation. Hope we can get better eventually. Thank you for the lovely support and the push I needed to be honest with my wife. It was a wonderful time that came from a horrible situation. They do say manure makes for better crops, right? I'm sorry. Dumb joke aside, I wish you and your family lots of love and happiness. I appreciate a good joke, and thank you. OP, you clearly do deserve her. While her family was saying all these disgusting things to you, your primary thought was the negative effect on your wife if she knew. Please get your wife something nice and do loads of little things for her. Trust me, I am and plan to continue doing so. I feel like I don't deserve her, but I'll keep trying to show her how much she means to me. OP, you clearly do deserve her. While her family was saying all these disgusting things to you, your primary thought was the negative effect on your wife if she knew. You two obviously care so deeply for each other and prioritize each other in the way that marriage vows were meant to promise. You have a beautiful family together, and she's devoted to you in this way because you show her that you're worth it. If you're able to, ask if she'd be willing to go to therapy. She's a wonderful partner, and while I agree with her cutting off everyone, it's still a difficult decision to make. Having a therapist tell her as much may help her adjust faster. Good on you for taking that break together. It's unfortunate that the sentiment seemed to be shared, but in retrospect, it's good to see her find out now than later. The stigma male assault survivors face is no joke. Glad she's having a no-tolerance policy when it comes to you and your kid. I'm happy she decided to cut contact with them and sided with you. That was very considerate of you to be okay with her staying in touch had she wanted to. You all deserve that break. Glad those toxic relations are being cut off. After everything, I just wished she wouldn't lose out on time with her family. She stopped having anything to do with them for years because of how they were acting. Her father passed away last year, and neither ever got to reconcile before that. She stands by her decision, and I have to respect that. All I can do is support her now how she supported me, and show her how I appreciate her. Next story. I, 23 male, find my girlfriend's 20 female, perfect family extremely intimidating. I, 23 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 20 female, now for nearly 6 months, and the more I get to know about her family, the more inadequate I feel. I know no family's perfect, but she comes from a really nice one, the sort of family that I used to think only existed on television. She's the second oldest of 4 siblings, with an older brother and a younger brother and sister. Her dad works high up in a school board, and her mom works in medicine, so they're very well off, and heard all of her siblings are destined for good careers. They're the sort of upper-middle-class family that own a big house and camper van, and all go on trips together. They're really close with all their extended family, and all meet up over Christmas/birthdays and play board games at family nights. They even have picture of all 7 of them, including the dog, and matching pajamas from last Christmas Eve. My girlfriend is about to start university doing law, and has managed to get some work experience at a solicitor's from via a family friend. On the other hand, my family is kinda messed up. I'm not looking for a sob story, so I'm not going into too much detail. But I've never met my dad, and my mom wasn't exactly the family time sort of mom. I do think she's tried her best, but she has a lot of demons from her upbringing that she hasn't dealt with in the best way. I have one half-brother who's a few years younger than me, but his dad has disappeared again, so I have to spend a lot of time looking after him and making sure he gets to school, etc. I was the first person in my family to go to university, and even though it was a poor-ranking university and my grade was very average, I am still really proud of myself. I've met her immediate family a couple times for a meal and met a few of her extended family at a birthday party. Although they're all super nice, not a bunch of Karens, I just get so uncomfortable and embarrassed when they talk to me and ask me questions about my life and my family. I feel like they're so disappointed in my girlfriend for choosing to date me, especially because her cousin, who is a similar age to her, is engaged to some posh guy who also comes from a successful family. I've spoken to my girlfriend about it a little bit, and even asked if she'd be better off without me, but she insisted that she was happy with me, and her parents will see that. However, I just can't shake the feeling of inadequacy when they're talking about their holidays to Spanish villas, or what her older sister is achieving at work. It's hard to explain, but even just the vibe within the house where they'll sit down for a meal and tell each other how their day was or how they're feeling is so strange to me. Sorry if this is a bit long-winded or stupid, but it's just been playing on my mind a bit recently, and I can't help but think she deserves better. If anyone has been in a similar situation or could offer any advice, I'd really appreciate it. You are on a path of self-sabotaging if you keep it up. You need to find confidence that 1. Your girlfriend chose you because of who you are, not your family, and 2. You are not your family. If you aren't comfortable sharing with them, just give a vague but honest answer, then change the subject. Them. What do your parents do for a living? You. My mom raised me by herself and works as/at fill-in job type or company. Girlfriend says you work in medicine. That must be rewarding. How did you choose medicine? Also, seeing a counselor or therapist to work through how you feel about your background could help you build up more confidence. I'm sort of in this situation now, but I'm your girlfriend and my guy isn't as open and honest with me as you be intimidated. If something seems too good for you, it's because you're used to settling for less. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why would I turn down a family that accepts and supports its family members without proof that they don't want me? Healthy families often do their best to include more people. They want to be able to support the people their families care about. As for not knowing how to talk to them, that'll come in time. You've only had 6 months to learn your girlfriend's entire store and support group. By year 3, you'll be talking with them and getting along without much effort. I promise. Now for the last story. My 24 and 44 female thinks the story of how my fiancé and I met is gross and inappropriate. So, on my 24 female 18th birthday, I went to a bar with a few friends. Whilst there, we saw my now fiancé, Josh, who was 21 at the time. He had just been discharged from the army and was celebrating his newfound freedom. He was flirting with my friend, and I swooped in to help her and Josh started to flirt with me. I wasn't looking for a hookup or relationship, so brushed his advances off, but he wouldn't back down. He flashed us, pulled up his shirt to show his abs, and he kissed me without consent, resulting in him getting kicked out. The next year, on my 19th birthday, a friend invited me out to meet some of his old uni buddies, and Josh, 22 at the time, was there. He instantly recognized me and pulled me aside and apologized profusely. He said he was on hard drugs and doesn't actually remember what happened that night and only knows through his friend's choppy accounts. Well, we ended up talking and got quite close and started to date. He proposed to me 6 months ago, and our wedding is in August 2022. We announced the wedding at a family gathering, but I've had talks in smaller groups since then. My aunt thinks the story of how we met is grossly predatory and inappropriate and sets a bad precedent for young boys. The fact he wouldn't back down and kissed me without consent. She said I should make something up so it's more appropriate for today's time. We both have different views, and she always pulls the "I'm older than you and therefore wiser" card. She has openly said she has no respect for Josh and will not come to my wedding. How do I get her to understand we're in a happy and loving relationship? Is it a lost cause? Now for the top advice. In a sense, she's absolutely right. You didn't just fall for him then and there though. You accepted the situation for what it was and probably thought he was a douche. Fast forward a year, and he's seemingly a different person and he apologized. You've subsequently been together for what, 5 years now? Unless he's crossed any boundaries, would like to believe he's not the same person, and would like to assume you're in a good and healthy relationship. If that's the case, just state as much. This is the problem with disclosing issues with family. They'll focus on it. It is not as easy for them to forgive. At the end of the day, though, it's your life. If you're happy and not overlooking any red flags, she should be supportive of you and your life. If she's not, it's really her problem. Good luck. Edit. I would add that you should really stop telling that story. It's funny to you in hindsight, I imagine. But to a lot of people, they're going to receive it as, haha, let me tell you the story of how when I met my boyfriend, he harassed me and kissed me without my consent. We met at a bar will suffice. Or even, we met at a bar, didn't click at all, then ran into each other a year later and things had changed. If Obi really wants to share the almost didn't happen feel in some way. Wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other people who hear that story also thinks it's gross or at least a bit weird, but they just keep their opinion to themselves. He was in drugs and hitting on multiple women until kissing me without consent and getting kicked out isn't a cute tale. Totally agree. I'd also assume the boyfriend would find the story really embarrassing and upsetting for Opie to be telling. If Opie shared it with her aunt way back then, and the aunt remembers still, that's one thing. But if the story is part of their romantic narrative that comes up more regularly, the boyfriend probably hates it. It comes off so badly. It's not cute. If you don't want other people to think your fiancé is a creep, you probably shouldn't tell that full story. It's great that it's changed at all, but it comes off really poorly, and it would surely color how I saw him if I heard a full story.